20 years ago and enabled us to build the stone circle here, that we might begin the journey of remembering our own ancestors, of remembering our own people, our tribes, of remembering the spirits, gods and goddesses of this land. And sat here in this little grove of trees, which I planted about 18 years ago. And the whole of Embercombe rewilding around me. The squirrel who ran across my path as I entered the gates. The rabbit who then ran across my path a little while later. The animals in the field and those flying above, and to all of those. Oh, the badger, whose tracks I came across, and latrine full of half-eaten gooseberries on my way to the same bushes. To all of these wonderful beings who bless our land, instruct us and inform us, I give thanks, not also forgetting all those people who've been drawn to come here this evening, to be with Loretta and Linda, and to share in the wonderful teachings, wisdom and grace that they bring. Hey.
Thank you, Mac, and welcome everybody. I think you've all come in from the waiting room now. This is Embercombe Online. Lovely to see some of you again and some new faces here too. We are talking tonight about modern indigeny. It is the second conversation of a series that we're running at the moment. And before we start, we're really excited because we've got Linda and Loretta with us tonight, who I think you're really going to enjoy. But just to start by giving you a little bit of context about what we mean by modern indigeny. So as Mac was just saying there, Embercombe was founded with the idea, and Mac, you can talk about this in a minute if you like, with the idea that it's important for all of us to find our relationship with land and place. Mac's a Native American teacher, said that really what we should be doing is looking for our own indigenous roots and restoring our relationship with the land and the more than human world and what's sacred. So really what we're exploring here is what it means to find our roots, to find our ancestry, to find our place, to find our belonging in the kind of wider discussion that's going on in the world at the moment about race and equality and belonging. And tonight we have two of the people that both Mac and I have worked with before. The first is Loretta Cook, who comes from the Oglala Lakota Nation. She is an elder and a Sundance leader. She's a grandmother, and she'll tell you more about that. But something she wanted me to say was that she offers what she offers for her grandsons, and she'll tell you more about that. The other is Linda Delormier from the Snipe Clan of the Mohawk Nation in Canada. I am going to hand over at this point to Mac, because Mac, you have a personal relationship with them. You have known them for a long time, and I would love for you just to say how you met them and give a little introduction for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Yes, so I found myself in Australia for the first time at a gathering there. And the gathering was the themes, I guess, of spirituality and you know, finding those threads of a new story. And I have to say that I felt a little bit rather a bit lost, really, and wandering around and wasn't quite sure where my family were, because I didn't feel entirely in the right place with the right people, although I think later it got better. But anyway, I I found myself graduating towards this small group from whom there seemed to be an enormous amount of laughter and fun going on, and lots of just life, really. And I seem to remember I sort of sat myself on the outer perimeter of this circle, where I could kind of pretend that I was part of it without being too rude. And eventually, very graciously, I was sort of invited in. And it was truly special, because I've spoken many times really about, you know, the loving, the sacredness of the ordinary, and how, you know, we don't have to badge ourselves by dressing in some particular way, or somehow anointing ourselves with airs and graces that somehow tell everybody else that we're special. It is in the people that we are. And with this group, and amongst them was Loretta and was Linda and various other Indigenous people, I found that wonderful unity of just loving life and children and food and community and prayerfulness and ceremony and wonderment at the joy of being here together. Later, we did quite a few things really, but yes, came to Schumacher College, came to Embercombe. I also seem to remember a time when Loretta, Linda and myself were all hidden behind some boulder on the edge of one of Britain's most famous prehistoric monuments, with billowing smoke emitting from behind it as smudges were burnt or smoke. And all of us like alert to the fact that we might have the authorities rushing in very soon to escort us off the site. But we got away with it, and the prayers were made, which was just wonderful. And later then the invitation to go and to dance, Sundance, that Loretta holds with her husband Tom, and to dance in that huge ceremony was a great honor. So I'm very, very thankful really for all that I have learnt from both Linda and Loretta, and gratitude that they're willing to give us this time this evening.
Thank you, Mac. And now I'd love to ask you, Loretta, just to say a few words of introduction, if you wouldn't mind.
I would like to greet each and every one of you with, I want to touch your face with my hand and say to you that you're my relation. So I come from a traditional family on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation at a time when it was not cool, as it were, to be Native. I grew up in a really positive, generous home. And I think that at this time in our lives, I'm coming into my 73rd year, and I feel very fortunate that I'm still connected to those ancient ways from before we were on the reservation, put on reservations, and then looking at that transition from that time to today and how we deal with things. And the most, I think the most important part to me has been the way that we have followed traditional ceremony, using the words of the ancient prayers, the relationships that we have with all of the world, and making time to be relative with everybody. And so I live by principles, guiding principles, which in fact come to the place where it says the tiwahe, or wo titakuye, which means kinship, and we have Wachante Oganaka, which is having heart and kindness, and we have some courage, fortitude, honesty, authenticity, all of those words that have brought me from where I've been as a little child to today. And it's a practice of that. And it's no different for any one of you, I'm sure, because you come from somewhere too.
Great, thank you, Loretta. We'll come back to that in a second because I think that's fascinating. But Linda, would you give some words of introduction, please? Oh, you're muted, I think. Can we?
Am I still muted?
Oh, that's no, we can hear you. That's brilliant.
What going to do? So Karonhienhawe yujets. Tana wagene sio ni wagita roda. Negani kahaga ni hunzota. Kahnawake tkiterun tano. Wagatunini tiko ingestano. Wandaga kanawara duchara ne yuki istahansi hunzade. Dawa tara angawano headstone. Ne agwego asko and the wahwet no name of what the gora the no dating horado. Ne agwego sa oyera hunzade. So I just wanted to speak to creation first in my language, as our tradition and beliefs outline, and acknowledge everything that exists in this earth, and that we all come together in one place, in one mind, as we begin these discussions. And my name is Linda Delormier, or Karonhienhawe, and I'm of the Snipe clan, the Mohawk Nation here in Canada, Quebec, Canada, just south of Montreal. And I am happy to be here to talk with you today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Linda. Can I ask you to speak up next time, because I think your microphone's quite low, so we're all straining, I think, but thank you so much. Can I start with kind of the first question? And I think Loretta kind of touched on it actually when she was talking. When you say you are lucky to have the words kind of from a child to now, from the ways before, when we talk, I mean, obviously we're all indigenous to planet Earth, but in our cultures, we've lost connection with our indigenous roots, if is a way to kind of think about it. We no longer have those words. If you kind of think about, original instructions to live with the land and the places we are, how likely is it, how possible is it for us to find those roots, that relationship, when we don't have those words and that unbroken tradition? Perhaps Loretta, you would like to kind of start there.
For my people, you have to imagine back through the decades and the hundreds of years, the contact that we've had with Euro-American people. And a lot of that, what was shown to us and given to us over thousands of years, had to deal with prophecies that were coming in front of us. And it might not be in our time, but it would be become known at some point in time. And so for us, the female that was instructed by the great vibration, as it were, Shka, is the male entity that is called by many different names in many different countries, but they also call Shka creator. But in our tradition, we follow Shka to mean the great vibration, the sacred movement, everything that is alive in our universe. And the female to him is called Wo'opre. And what Wo'opre translates to is to my understanding, is the law of the female law, our mother law. And so when you have that balance and you can begin to see how growth comes from that, you make room for everything else that's going to come into our lives. And from a time immemorial, we've been told about our creation stories, and every nation on earth has their creation story. If you could just reach in the back of you and put it in front of you, because as we're growing in our time, we're creating our own medicine bundles. It's our legacy to have that bundle to pass from one to the other. But today, we live in such modern times that it's really hard to equate that sense of a balance back to, would you get me some coffee? It's hard to think about the old way and as it relates to the new way, as it were. And so knowing about that, coming from the 1800s to now, the first contact to now, you know, we've had to go back in and look at how were we before 1492, you know, when Columbus sailed the ocean blue and all that kind of, you know, for us, it was learning about the ways of other people. At the same time, when we put that time period with our elders and we said, what happened before then? It was very important for us to be able to understand how they felt, how they were given the knowledge and the passing down of that to the 7 generations. So it's always been that we keep that alive. And they always told us, do not change anything, do not add anything, whether you're doing ceremony, whether you're speaking to people, whether you're sharing that which is due to everybody. My grandfathers that I come from were all medicine people, and in their sense of the world, they decided to begin to write down a lot of the information for us so that we as their grandchildren could carry that on. So coming from that, I would venture to say to all of those who are listening that you do have roots from where you come from. And if you would be able to go back to that and really kind of shine it up a little bit, you're going to see that the place of your time was your destiny by what happened to your parents, their parents before them, so on and so on, back the other way. Yes, you have your ways. Yes, you understood all of nature in its processes. And what we have to remember today to continue this is that community is the first tool of survival. And within that context of community, if you're going to be doing something in terms of the ways of teaching or understanding ceremony, there's months and days and special days that are equated, say, to the solstice times or to the equinox times or to the moon time every month that is coming. What we've learned from these two, the male and the female, when they came and chose to give of themselves, they had partners, they had people, spirit entities that worked with them so that we could have this beautiful globe of the world in which to live. And we wanted to live in such a way that it's really hard to get along with people, with each other sometimes. So we've learned survival skills, and that was the reason why I said in community, we live to build out those survival techniques and the modes and the relationships that go with that. For my people, going by that creation story, we understood that Earth Mother, when Iya, the rock, there are four main gods in Oglala ways. Our people have to call on 16 gods, and each of those gods have partners that they do certain things with and that they move in those directions to build that ceremony. And so the first 4 are the sun, and we call the sun Wika, Ga in our language, Kan, means ancient, that which is without beginning and without end. And then you have the Nari, which is this air we breathe. And then you have Macartney, which is the earth mother. And at the very center of the earth is the liquid fire rock that sits and holds everything around itself. And so from that rock, we call this rock the first grandfather. So if you start to think about how we do ceremony with the sweat lodges, what we call inipi, when you go into inipi, you come back into your earth mother. And in the very center of that sits a hole where the earth has been taken out and put in front of the inipi, so you can put your sacred items onto the altar of that earth that is created there as an altar. And in the center of that, we ask Earth Mother's permission to put the liquid rock that comes up as the hard stones to be heated up to the heat of the sun, to put in front of you and to pour water, to give water back to the rock, because at one time Iya had that water. Iya was in charge of that water. And when he gave of himself and gave it to the earth to cover the earth, he became a very hard piece, like a hard rock. The mountains that you see, those are Iya. Those are coming from the very center of the earth and how they grew. And if you plow a field, you're going to find that you cleared all the rocks out from that field last year, but you go in there this year, there's the rocks again. They grow and they come up through the earth mother. And so you always have to pay attention to what you're doing and how you're doing it. And it takes time, your special time, to be able to be having a relationship with all that is alive around you. And when you take that time to do that, it's not just flicking it off and saying, oh yeah, that's a blade of grass. What you say is that I can see and understand that that grass is growing from Earth Mother. We're all rooted in that Earth Mother and everything around her. If we can catch those things spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, we can then start to understand our indigeneity and whatever that word might mean to you. But it can be that simple of a teaching, and yet there are procedures and there are principles that guide us to these things. And so in my people's ways, like I told you, the guiding principles for me are the generosity, the wachante ogunake, and then you have tiwahe, and that is your clan, your tioshpaye, your home, your own family unit, and those that are married into it. So it translates in that way. And then you have fortitude. You have to have a big mind, fortitude. And what that means is wachintanga. It means having the big mind, but not only having the big mind, but being in the right frame of mind. Because as you know, we're mere human beings. And so we have frailties that way, where sometimes we don't have a big mind, and therein comes chaos. And then the last of that is to have woksape, which is wisdom. These are guiding principles that we as Native people have been using for time immemorial, so that we always have a place and a time and a thing that we take time to do our work every month of every year that we come into it. The female life dictates what happens in your world. And so if we can have that type of respect back in our home territories, in our homelands, in the places where we are, your females have that special power that holds the sacred and that can teach you everything that you need to know to the male. And in that procedure, or in those guiding principles, we're told that the white buffalo calf woman brought us the 7 sacred ceremonies, and those ceremonies translate to Inipi, which is the rite of purification that I just talked about. Humblechia, crying for a vision. We just got through, Linda and I just got through running, taking care of our Sundance helpers, our women that take care of everything in the Sundance as it's going on. And so we have a vision quest that we do. So we've been running that and coming into summer solstice, and when we were finished, so we did 4 days of fast, the rituals that go along with that, the prayers. We just finished that. And it's hard. We invited many people to fast with us, but of course, you know, we're social distancing, so it's up to each one of us if we're going to carry that on to fruition. We won Wakipi. Sundance is the most sacred of my Oglala people ceremonies. That's the time that you're standing between heaven and earth, and your feet, in your bare feet, you're standing on Earth Mother. You have the air around you. The sun is coming at you. The moon is there. Everything that you need to make that holy is already there. And you're the vessel that is receiving. And so you can be of any age when you enter into this realm of it. But there are procedures. Like I said, these are guiding principles for my people. The rites of passage, Ishnotipi, the rites of passage that we take our females out and we treat them very specially. We don't let them comb their own hair. We don't let them wash themselves for those days that they're on their beautiful time of renewal, the moon time. We take care of them, and we show them how much they mean to us by taking care of them. So we even feed them. We feed them. They don't have to feed themselves. They're like our little treasures, and so we take good care of them for those 4 days. And every tribe, I would venture to say, runs according to the moon time of these one young women that are out there, because they all go out together and they have their moon time in common. And so the leaders of the tribe would watch these young women, and when they go out and then they come back in, then they have 28 days in between that those young women are going to be taken out again. So we became like a calendar, and they made everything move in that time period. They know they have 28 days to do something. They know this has to be done at that time. And it was the basis of these young women going out to do their rituals for being taken care of. So it's a very special time.
It feels that there are various things obviously different between our cultures. You know, we don't have these procedures. We don't have the time spent on the land. You know, our relationship with land and place has kind of been broken. I wonder if I could bring Linda in here as well. Do you think, Linda, I mean, I know that you work very closely with Loretta, so you've both been doing these ceremonies, you know, this week. Do you think it is kind of possible in our culture, kind of in the world, for these kind of procedures, for this relationship to kind of be reconstructed? Yes, I'd love to hear what you think about some of these issues. Are you still with us, Linda? I think we might have lost Linda for a second. Loretta, I mean, maybe did you say something about that?
May I finish giving you?
Sorry, yes, of course, yes.
Okay, there are 7 principles, and so I told you about the coming of age. We have what's called toss the ball, and we work with our young women, and we do a ceremony for that. We're going to do that this coming year, and the most, I think sometimes when we lose loved ones, like today, all over the world, we have death going on because of COVID-19. And a lot of our people are in mourning right now. And one of the things that our people have is a ritual, a ceremony called the keeping of the soul. And a lot of our people from across the world are saying we don't have an opportunity to mourn our loved ones. We just take them from the hospital and put them away. And so there's no opportunity to be saying the rituals and the prayers that go along with the keeping of the soul, because that goes on for a year. So when we have all of these guiding principles, then I say to you, your challenge is that how do you do these things that we do for our young people, for our families? And if you're not doing them on the land, if you're asking for what is missing, these are things to be keeping busy about. These are things to be associating with the Earth Mother. I told you about standing on her and being prepared to offer yourself as a vessel. I think my daughter Linda is back now, so I can just leave you with that and you can call her back in.
Thank you so much, Loretta. Sorry to have interrupted you as well. Linda, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I couldn't unmute myself. It wasn't out of my control. So I'm back.
Fantastic. Brilliant.
Yeah, I love that I have both Mac and Loretta to speak before me as my elders. And I think that's really important to point out too. You're asking a question that there is no one answer to, you know, and I just want to say part of it is that respect that we're all standing on the shoulders of giants. Can you guys hear me this time? Am I speaking loud enough?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and we have our ancestors, and we are ancestors, you know, and we have our ancestors. We have the people in our lives to teach us all of these things. And it doesn't need to have the trappings and the props that you know, we try to make things difficult and complicated with. I loved what Mac had to say about, you know, there's a sacredness in the ordinary, and how everything, you know, every step that we take on the back of our mother is a sacred one. And if we can make every step a prayer, that's what we're looking for. That's the relationship that we're looking for. You know, our primary relationship is with gravity, it's with the earth. You know, that's our primary relationship in this lifetime that we've been given. And how can we, you know, make contact with ourselves and the earth, you know, first and foremost? How can we make contact with ourselves, and what does that mean? What does contact mean to you? You know, what does it mean to the people in your life? What does it mean? And how can you make contact with yourself? How can you make contact with the earth? What does it feel like? What does it feel like to make tracks on the earth? And when you look down at those footprints, you're seeing the earth telling you who you are. And when you can read what those tracks say, she doesn't lie. She knows who you are. She's your mother. And that's the relationship that Loretta is talking about when she talks about wo'opre and that mother law. And we have all of these manifestations in our own environments, within our own cultures, that tell us how to do these things through history and through our ancestors. And I think what it all boils down to is, you know, that relationship. Like, how do we have a relationship? How do we make contact with ourselves? How do we make contact with the earth? And how do we make contact with creation? And when we do that, then we can start making contact with each other. And, you know, Loretta said that so eloquently with all of the 7 guidelines that the Lakota use and the 7 ceremonies that they use. And that's how the Lakota do it. And what it all, I think, boils down to for me is those relationships. I'm so lucky to have, you know, 3 mothers and 2 fathers. You know, I have my biological parents, and I've been adopted into Loretta's family. I have her and Tom as my parents. you know, and I have my stepmother as my parent. So I have been blessed with so many parents and so many of these ancestors to teach me as I move through this life. And that's something that I can pass on to my kids and my, you know, grandchildren when they come. But what one more thing I would like to say is that all of this in balance. You know, Loretta talked about shkan and wo'opre and how that contact is in balance with each other, in balance on the earth. In my culture, we have the turo wampum, and it's two lines, two paths on a white background. And what this depicts is every relationship that we have. It's mother, child, it's husband, wife, it's, you know, friends, colleagues, family. This is the relationship that we have. We're both traveling down the river of life in our individual vessels. And we have a line that links us and that we can use to nurture and nourish and replenish that relationship as we move together autonomously together through this river of life. And so how can we, I think, embody everything that we are? You know, I like, you know, people like to say becoming, and that's a good word. You know, everything that we are and that we have the potential to become, how can we embody that or embody the possibility, the potential that that exists within us, and be that. Just be that. It's no more complicated than that. Just be that. And let the world see you and let the earth reflect to you who you are.
Wow, thank you, Linda. We have about 5 minutes before it'd be great to open up some questions. So I'd just like to ask the both of you, what do you think is the most important work in the world at this moment from your perspectives?
I'm sorry, were you asking?
Yeah, well, to both of you, really. What do you think is the most important work in the world? Maybe Linda, would you like to start on that one? What's the most important work to be doing for all of us, really, in that we're all kind of mutually looking for belonging? What's the most important work?
Loretta, I don't want to speak before you. Is it okay?
Please, go ahead.
I think we can't do any work until we know what this is. What is this instrument that's been given to us? How does it work? What are the gifts that have been given to us when we were brought into this world? How do we use them? What have they been? Where do we feel them in our body? What are they doors to? Like, how does this work? How does all of this work? And what are the doorways that it leads to? I think that's the most important work for each of us to do, is to know that, is to feel that and be that, so that we can then embody all of that for the rest of creation to see that we are being authentically who we are, and we can model that for others.
Thank you. Loretta.
In telling you about some of the guiding principles that I have shared with you, I think that prophecy always lets us know that we have something to work toward. And that could be all of us collectively taking the time right now. We're in this COVID infection time, and we're all sitting in our homes and we're all wondering, what can we do? So this would give us a time to be in isolation with our own thoughts. And some people have a hard time doing that. They find that they're so used to running and doing whatever they have to do that they don't take that time to really settle in themselves. But if you were to think about what is the prophecy for not just our people, but also to the future, then that prophecy is always talked about by our elders as, peace in your surroundings, peace in your world, whatever that might mean for you. And is it possible right now with the Earth Mother? We've been praying so hard for protecting Earth Mother, for protecting our climate, for doing the work that we have to do to protect our waters. And all of a sudden, I'm hearing that the skies are having a little bit cleaner air because we don't have 5,000 planes in the air and over the North American continent. And the water is starting to clean itself. And there are many, many things that we do just as individuals, that we go out and we respect and we talk to the things around us and try to be in a peaceful stance. But when you're fraught with so many things, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that. But the reality is that right now is a wonderful opportunity, in spite of our loved ones that have left on their spirit journeys. There's thousands upon thousands of people have passed away. Just yesterday we heard about, so many 4,000 dying are being termed positive with COVID in Mexico. We go down there to pray with those people too. And so we're worried about them and we're hearing about them, and 800 of them dying just in a 24-hour period. And so we have to be wondering about being cautious. And if we want to get to that place and time where we can respect each other and have the good words to say to one another, and to do the work that is needed. Right now we're planting gardens so that we can have food in the event that in the coming fall and in the winter we have to feed ourselves, because we don't know how long this virus is going to go on. And so that's at the heart of what we're doing. It's dictating how we do and are going to be in the future. And so if we can collectively put our minds and our hearts together, as many of our elders are saying to us, have a collective heart and your mind together, and what meets in that center is the most sacred of places. If we can do that, think of how that feeling that we could push forward, we can manifest a vast change together without knowing any color. Because according to our medicine wheel, there are 4 colors of man. We didn't know that, but when the White Buffalo Calf woman brought us our sacred guiding principles, she left 4 times. She sat down. The first time she got up, she was black. The second time, red. The third time, yellow. And the 4th time, white. And she left the spirit entities in those places to teach us. And she left things for us to take care of in those directions. The winds, they're named in those 4 directions. And so a mix of those colors today are the colors of man. And so my mother, who was a member of the International Council of 13 Indigenous Grandmothers, gave a story to us. And she told us that the handprint that is found on petroglyphs all over the world are an actual sign of showing each other that they were people of peace. And she said that in order to achieve that, we have to know and embrace everybody. She said, those of you who are sitting in mixed company today, she said, put your hands together and put your palms up and match each other. She said, what is in the color of our palm is universal throughout the world. This is the only place on our bodies that we are the same color. And the rest of it doesn't matter. So if you can have that feeling of peace, then we're well on our own way. But when you have to fight racism, you have to fight inequality, all of those things that we don't like to talk about, that we thought by the time that we get to be of a certain age, that those things would have been things of the past, but no, they aren't. Today, they're still going on. And so we have to really firmly work together, heart to heart. Let's send it through the air, this sacred air that we're breathing, to connect with each other. We can manifest. We manifested a healing for one of our colleagues from Scotland at Embercombe. We did an actual ceremony there when we were there. Today, our colleague, David Waters from Scotland, is well. His cancer was contained, and Mac was a part of that. We did that where his land base is. So we created a place of sacred, and it's up to each of us. We can do that in our own home territories, in your own backyard. Take and do what is speaking to you in a way that is not foreign. You already know that. Have the big mind to seek that which is speaking to you, and practice it. Put it into practice. Because as we're doing this right now with the COVID, we have an element that we can connect. There's a very thin veil between where we are today in this dimension and where our loved ones have gone on their spirit journey. It's a very thin veil. And if we can right now take and have to keep the souls of those ones, our loved ones, we don't know who they are. We don't know their names. We don't know what color of man they are. It doesn't matter. But we do know that we feel sad. There's a profound sadness that we're all experiencing. And it's coming out in different chaotic ways for our young people. And so we're trying to bring them back into the circle by continuing to do the rituals and the guiding principles of our tribes, our nations, and the education facilities are looking for ways to be able to pass that on. And so the more that you do these things and the more that you open it up, our people just because of the fact that they have relationship with everything alive in their world and they recognize it. You know, they're scientists in their own right, our people. We know which plants are good for us. We know what to eat. We know what can be saved. We know all those things. And it should be that we should be able to share everything and anything, because our grandfathers had said to us, these things are for us to give. They're not for us to keep. And when you put your hands together and you all reach out, then how many of us can put our hands together across this world and show that we are a movement toward peace, because we're suffering right now and because we want that positive ending, that positive outcome.
Well, thank you, Loretta. Mac, I wonder, we have about 12 minutes left, and I'm so sorry because I love listening to both of you talking. I'm so sorry we're only here for an hour. It's, yeah. Mac, are you back? I know you've left for a second there. Has anybody seen Mac? No, not as yet. He's probably struggling to get back in. I'd love to open it up if anyone's got a question. We either put it in the chat, or if you have a question, raise your hand. I'm noticing that comments coming earlier from Justine about our roots being Celt, you know, and Sharon Blackie's work on women rising rootage, which is a good one to kind of look at. Does anybody have a question? If you do, raise your hands. Very quiet on the question front. Okay, so in closing then, so fantastic, we have another 10 minutes. So Loretta and Linda then, so I'm now struggling for a question. I'd be really interested, so you've just come in from doing ceremonial work. Oh, Mac is there. Hello, Mac. I don't know how much you caught of our conversation, but I would love to ask you to make some remarks as well.
Okay, my battery ran out, so I have missed some. So I'm finally using Cindy's computer.
Okay, we were talking about kind of the work to do in the world at the moment, and Linda and Loretta have given us really kind of beautiful things that are kind of current at the moment. I'm wondering, having not heard either of them, whether you can kind of answer that question as well. The work to be doing in the world, what's the work that we need to do? And that's not a great question either, but.
Well, you know, I do feel that without reconnecting back, I say back, but even in the present, reconnecting basically to spirit, to the sacred, then everything else will just fall off a cliff anyway. So I really feel that it's not that we have to stop everything else, but if we don't come to what Linda was speaking about, every footfall, seeking to understand the blessing that was given to us to be here at all for a period of time, the miracle that we are inhabiting and trashing. You know, Mother Earth did not walk away from us. You know, we walked away from her. She is still there, calling and calling, arms wide, bringing her children home, you know, calling our children home. So we basically, we need to respond. And the other thing is, we know, as I've said many times, you know, we used to build our homes 2,000 years ago with the doorways facing the rising sun. You know, we knew ceremony, we had our ceremony, we had our songs, we had our stories. Where did all that come from? I would say it came from a people who understood the grace that had been given to them, and then gave the time to listen deeply, to dream deeply, to come together in families in this community. And through listening to the trees, to the streams, to the forest, to our gardens, to all this, we will find again our ceremonies. We will find ways in which we can speak directly to the creator and creatress. And we will cease to be the mentally ill people that we currently are, and incidentally the self-harming people that we currently are. We will find our health. We will find this thing that everybody says they chase, which is happiness. We'll find ourselves, we'll find each other, and we will become part of family again. But it has to matter enough to us to do that. So I hope we do.
And that lovely question has just come in from Emma that I think would be lovely to finish on. So I'll ask you all, but perhaps starting with you, Mac. Do you think that we can achieve what we need to achieve in the next decade, or in time for when it needs to be, or maybe there isn't a needs to be time on it? How do you feel about that?
Of course we can. Will we?
Yes. Linda, did you want to go next?
I would love to, and I apologize again, Loretta. what I wanted to say in response to her question, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Is what Mac said, it's a choice, you know, it's a choice. Will we need to choose that. We need to choose that individually and collectively, that is the direction that we want to go to. And I think what I wanted to say a little bit before here, you know, Loretta had said community is the first tool of survival. And the interdependence that was required in order to have community is what we're missing right now. And without that, it's harder to make that choice because the support isn't there. We need to know who we are, what this is, what this gift is. And, you know, we need to, if we could do all of the work that we needed to do on ourselves, we would have done it. But it's not easy to see ourselves in a way that it's easy to to have it reflected back to us. So if we are doing this in community and having this reflected back to us, having the earth reflecting back to us who we are, you know, then we can be that much closer to being in contact to all of those things I said earlier. And then it's a choice. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be difficult, but it's simple, but simple doesn't mean it's always easy. And it's a choice. It's a choice that we all need to make for ourselves and for the earth.
Yeah, wonderful. Loretta, do you have anything that you'd like to add to that?
I think the continuation of these conversations from Native communities and into talking about some of the thoughts that keep us at this place where we're feeling a little bit angst, and what Mac was saying about hurting ourselves. You know, if we can continue to open up and be with each other in that way, whether it be through the educational processes that invite people to come. I think the colleges having Native studies or indigenous programs to come in to do a collective education output, I think would be one way that we could achieve a quiet segue into helping people to achieve a good life in their senses. But I think that people all over the world were ready to help wherever we're needed, and we've been doing that. Linda and I have traveled as far as Santiago, Chile, where we Sundance with Mapuche people down there. And there are many, many different nations of people that we're dancing with in Mexico. And now we're invited to come to France. And so the Native people in those communities, you know, are requesting some form of I suppose, the ancient, and we're always right there ready to help with prayer. We've never turned down somebody asking us to come and help with that. That to me says a community is healing and a community is ready to receive. So I give you that. That's as much as I know. Thank you so much for letting us be with you today, Rachel. I really miss you. I miss Mac. I miss his little family, and you know, I wish we could spend time together.
Hopefully at some point in the future we will, because we'd love to invite you both back to Embercombe, and it would be lovely to do more of these connections online in the meantime. So thank you so much for coming, both of you. We need hours is what I would say about that. We've had some lovely comments coming in the chat. Another question from Clemence, which is a brilliant one, but we can't answer in the time. So please come back, both of you. That's all I'll say for now. Mac, is there anything that you would like to say to finish on?
Love you, Loretta. Love you, Linda. Very happy you're in our world. Many blessings.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for coming tonight. It's been lovely to see you all. To be continued.
To be continued.
Lots of love, everybody. Bye. Bye.